So today we're going to discuss Black Lives Matters. And this is probably not going to go where you think it's going to go. So the first thing that I think we should all do with Black Lives Matters is stop calling them Black Lives Matters and just start calling them BLM. And the reason is because their name has absolutely nothing to do with what they stand for. They are a terrorist organization hell bent on destroying the United States. That's all they want. They're all Marxists. All these kids running around the street, whether they're black or white or Asian or whatever they happen to be, every single one of them are all Marxists. Now, sure, they go into these poor black communities and they stir up a bunch of trouble and they get them rioting and beating each other and killing each other and doing all this other stuff. That's what they do. But it's more about civil unrest than it is anything else. And I'm pretty sure if you look up the definition of a terrorist, that's pretty much what they stand for. You know, they go in and disrupt the government, disrupt whatever it is that they're trying to do. So BLM, terrorist organization. There's nothing else to say about them. What I really don't understand at this point is why the government hasn't listed them as a terrorist organization along with Antifa and just done away with both of them. I mean, anybody associated with those two groups ought to be in jail for terrorism, pure and simple. So all this stuff going on in Portland and Seattle and Chicago and all these different places, Atlanta, just label it as terrorism, go out on the street and start arresting people. Because as soon as one or two of them go to jail for terrorism, the rest of these thugs will go home and cry to their mom and daddy. So just quit talking about BLM because they are, in my opinion, no different than the terrorists that we've dealt with in the past. We need to squash them. We need to get rid of them. They have no useful purpose whatsoever other than disrupting all of our lives. So, the real problem. So my whole life, I have obviously gone to high school and then on to college. I never finished college. I was a terrible high school. I was a terrible student, period. I didn't do very good in school at all. Not because the courses were hard, but just I was bored to tears. I hated school. And I've always thought since I got out that, and I guess I should tell a really quick story here to kind of get you in my mindset. So after high school, I went to college, and I was flunking out. My mom eventually decided that she wasn't paying for my college anymore, and so my grandmother stepped up and said that she would pay for one of the quarters. Back then we did quarters, not semesters, but so she said that she would pay for one of my quarters. And so I went back to school having flunked most of my classes the quarter before. I went back to school and I got with a friend of mine and I said, I think his name was Chad. And I said, Chad, let's buckle down this quarter and let's see if we can get A's. Let's just see what would happen if we actually study. And so he agreed and we both did. The amazing thing is with the same professors, the same material, the same books, because again I had flunked out the quarter before, with all the same things sitting in front of me, the next quarter I made A's. I believe Chad and I both made A's in every class that we were in, and we had a pretty heavy load. So, and calculus and engineering and that kind of thing. So, but we had a pretty heavy load, and at that point in my life, I quit school. I did go back to try to get my bachelor's in mathematics, but I eventually quit that too because it's pointless. Because you go to school and you don't learn anything. Like I'll give you an example. Let's talk about English. So how many of us, and there are people that like English, but there's very few. How many of us have gone to high school, to college, and who knows what else, and taken all these English classes our whole lives? Where's the prepositional phrase, the adjective, all of these things? And at the end of the day, we never use that stuff. I couldn't even, my son, he's 8 and he's starting to do some of that stuff. I don't even know what that stuff is. It's completely and utterly useless. And yet our colleges and our high schools and our elementary schools, they all teach it. And so what ends up happening, and I will get to my point with BLM or with Black Lives, period. At the end of the day, when we all get out of high school, we don't know how to do anything but flip burgers. Like every kid that gets out of high school, they have no idea what they want to do for a living. They have no idea how to make a living. And so they end up either continuing to live with their parents, or they get into drugs, or they get into, other bad things. And they don't have any chance of succeeding. And what I realized when I was in college and I got the A's with all the same professors and everything else, I realized that if I want to do something, I can do it. I'm a software engineer right now. I never went to school to learn how to program computers. I never went to school to learn how a computer even worked. I got books. I worked my butt off for 20 years. I studied every single thing that I could get hold of related to computers. And now I have a really good life. So it wasn't given to me. I didn't have $1 million sitting in the bank to go start a business. I literally had to shoestring this thing together to get to be successful. And I'm not saying that I'm super successful either. I'm happy. So at the end of the day, if a person wants to do something, then they can do something. I happen to be lucky enough to get the opportunity to get into computers, and that was just the thing that I was meant to do. But the problem with most kids going to school is they get out of high school, and yeah, they've had advanced English. They've probably had multiple languages. They've had probably up into calculus or pre-calculus at least, engineering or some form of science that they've done. But none of them have built on each other, and none of them have really given them any idea what they want to do for a living. And so they get out of school, and their only option is to go to college. And when they go to college, unless they're a very strong-willed individual, when they go to college, they're brainwashed into believing that the United States is evil, that that whites hate blacks, and that blacks are held down by the whites, and all this crazy shit that the colleges ought to be sued over the stuff that they teach these kids, and they literally are brainwashing our children. So it amazes me if my son or daughter were running around on the streets right now protesting and having these Marxist ideas. I mean, I've seen videos of kids saying they hate their parents because their parents are disagreeing with what they're saying. It's crazy. But the colleges are the ones that are guilty of this. They have brainwashed these children into thinking that these Marxist ideas are real and that they work. They have no evidence to back any of it up. In fact, every single evidence that they would provide are proofs of complete and utter failure in all of these ideas. Communism, socialism, Marxism, they're all nothing but deterrents to humanity. So my point here is that BLM is a terrorist organization. Just take the name out. Black Lives Matters is not what they're about. Go read their own webpage. They actually say that they're not. They don't say. In fact, they don't say anything about blacks when they're on their website. They're more about social justice and Marxism. I mean, even the two ladies that are running the thing. I have a hard time calling them ladies, but the two terrorists that are running the thing, three I think, They're admitted Marxists, so terrorists. But the real problem that we have is education. And we've been listening to these politicians and these school teachers and the school superintendents and all these other people say that they're going to fix education, and yet we're still doing the same stupid shit that we were doing when I was in school, except that we've somehow made it even more retarded, because now you have to learn math in some crazy alternate universe in order to come back and tell me what 2 plus 2 is. So that's a whole nother discussion. But my big point here is that I think we need to, just like I said, that we need to get together and start boycotting some of these companies. I also think that we need to get together and completely revamp education. And I'm not talking about changing tests or changing, this to make it easier, or I'm talking completely revamping the education system from the ground up. And I do have a plan, and I am working on a website that I'm gonna push out as soon as I get it all put together. I think it's a really good way for kids to learn. And because of all this virus shit that's going around, I have my son, and I'll mention this. My son was accepted into Walton Academy over in Monroe, and when they started talking about all these masks and mandating me to wear a mask when I go out in public, and I had to, sign an agreement that everywhere I go I'm going to have a mask on, and all this other crazy shit with no evidence, I sent the principal, or the guy that runs the school, I sent him an email asking him a question, basically that, I can't wear a mask. I'm not wearing a mask unless somebody tells me why in the hell I'm wearing it. And I can't agree to these terms that he sent out that that they're trying to push on the kids. The kids are supposed to wear a mask in school. I mean, it's just, oh God, everybody's lost their minds. Anyway, he sends me back an email telling me they're giving me a refund for my kid, and he's no longer accepted into the school. So even the people that you think have a little bit of intelligence, it turns out they're nothing but sheep. So we've got these types of people teaching our kids, and when they get out of high school, what are they going to do? Where are they going to go? Why do they need to go to college to get a $60,000, $70,000 debt? And even then, I hire high school college kids here. I hire them. They're the worst employees that I've ever hired. In fact, I can honestly tell you that of all of my employees, only one of them actually, only one of them actually has a college degree, because the rest of them all quit or they got fired. So the whole thought process that you have to have college to be smart is just completely asinine. So I'm going to be putting together a plan. I'll roll it out here. But my son, because he's gotten kicked out of his school, I'm going to be homeschooling him. And so I'm setting, and I've got some friends that are, in fact, there's a whole bunch of people that are homeschooling. I would recommend homeschooling to everyone now that I've learned more about it. But I am working on a plan to set up a curriculum. I'm going to open source it so everybody can get hold of it and take a look at it to see if it might be something that they're interested in. But the big thing in my big plan is that I want to go into the local poverty district up here where I live, and I'm going to try to get with the local businesses and see if we can raise enough money to pay for a building that we can actually have the kids that are here that don't have any other options to be able to come to a place for 3 hours a day and actually learn how to do skills. And I'll give more details once I get things rolling. But actually learn how to do things, and along the way they're learning English, they're learning reading, they're learning writing, they're learning science, they're learning math. So these projects that they'd be doing teach them all the things that they're supposed to be learning. But at the end, when they get out of high school or get out of the whatever grade, at the end they actually know how to do a lot of things, and they have a better idea what they want to do for a living. So instead of them getting out of high school and going to work for McDonald's, they may get out of high school and start their own business. They may even start their own business before they get out of high school. So and my suspicion is that when they get out of high school, they won't want to quit coming to high school. They'll probably want to keep coming to high school because they're learning so much and having so much fun. So again, more information's coming as I get this stuff laid out, but you know, our big things that we have going on right now, we've got the protesters. Those guys can be squashed with boycotting companies and forcing them to apologize. I have more information coming on that. I'm working on a web page that we can all use to kind of organize and share ideas. But you know, we've got to organize as the silent majority. We have to organize to actually solve some problems. We've been sitting back waiting for the politicians to solve problems for my entire life. And you know what's different between now and when I was younger is it's more complicated now. They didn't solve a single thing. These people up in Washington have no idea how to solve a problem. All they know how to do is get in front of a camera and whine. So I don't care. I'm still, you know, I watch the news and I keep up with what's going on, but we need to solve problems. We don't need to talk about this stuff. We don't need to have I was talking to a friend of mine the other day and he was saying that, you know, I was getting into a whole bunch of problems because nobody's going to agree with me. Everybody's going to have their own opinion of what somebody at some point has to lead. You have to step up and say, this is what we're doing. We're doing this for the kids and we're going to solve this problem. If 2 or 3 mothers don't agree, they're welcome to take their kids somewhere else. But this is how we're laying this out, and this is what we're going to do. And I think when you see what I'm talking about doing, I hope that most of the people that I've talked to about it have thought it was a pretty cool thing. But and I've been talking to some kids as well. But I think that it may be a viable solution to our education problems. And then we'll have a lot smarter kids. And when we have a lot smarter kids, they're not going to go riot on the street because they know all that stuff is bullshit. All these kids running on the street, and I suspect that at some point they're going to find me and start harassing me. But we've got to solve these problems. We can't continue to do the same things that we're doing, and because they don't work. And just to be clear, I'm part of the problem. You know, we get up in the morning, we go to work, we want to be left alone, we just want to do our thing. We don't like paying taxes, but we pay the taxes. We don't like what the money's being used for, but what do we have? What can we do to fix it? The politicians are uncontrollable. You can't fix something that you can't touch, but we can touch them because we have all the money. So let's start driving the train instead of riding along like everyone else.